Okay, let's go ahead and get started there, everybody. Welcome to this portion of the stream where we are coding up. Well, we're basically working on portions of easy guides on how to learn how to mod in Terraria. Um, I have an idea for potential mod. Whether or not I can actually do it, well, we'll see about that. But we're going to learn how to go about doing this, and maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to get to a point where I can actually create the basically the tech tree that I was kind of talking about, which um, in some ways it might be a little um, it might be a little problematic because I might need to know like even the like smallest details that I might need to have in order to build equipment, right? So for example, there's been tutorials where um, where they talk about like hey, here's a tutorial for generating a sword, kind of thing. And it was basically showed you how to create this one sword and the like. And like, hey, I can here, let me show you right now. Let me bring up the game here. So make sure that we have all the mods disabled and the tutorial one that I use up and running. So when I go into the tester mod world, you know, I can show, hey, I have this one, tutorial sword, blah blah blah, that I've modified. So um, but I mean that's not something that I'm really in need of doing or worrying about at this particular moment in time. Like the sword is not the end goal for me, right? Um, so, um, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to continue with where we last left off, which was in the basic coordinates guide. We were, I wanted to see everything that was all about the screen coordinates, right? And what we could do with that. So now that we've kind of taken care of our understanding of space coordinates or the screen position, um, then um, then um, you know now we'll move on to the other parts of this particular section about all about coordinates, right? And what's um, what I'd like to know is, more about the drawing tiles, what that's all about, and kind of more about the tile to world location. So, um, you know, what exactly, um, you know, um, how do I visually see this overall, right? Not really concerned about the mouse screen all that much right at this moment in time, um, so I don't really need to worry too much about that. Um, So, um, um, Snail's position is displayed in the yellow box. Position in T relates to the top left corner. Um, World position. Um, and then, of course, you have the tile coordinate. So, um, I need to know, um, what I can kind of use on this, or what can, um, so I need, and I'm gonna need to kind of figure out everything here, before I move on, because if I'm gonna be drawing something on screen, so for example, let's go back into the tModLoader, right? Let's go back into the game. So now, what I will want to do sometime in the future is basically create something where it's basically like a map, like a different map screen. I hit a letter, it brings up a different screen altogether, and it shows, um, like potential, um, it basically shows like a different text screen altogether. So, um, or at least that's my initial thought line about it, because I look at the inventory screen here, and I don't know if I can really fit like a good like tech tree with all the possible um, everything that's a material would basically fit in the tech tree. Okay, because every single last one of these could potentially be used as something necessary for, you know, a weapon, some armor, or something else altogether, right? Um, so um, a consumable, a artifact, whatever, right? So the tech tree could, potentially have, a lot of these, as, materials to make something a little bit more. Now, this is where things get a little interesting concerning um, um, vanilla versus um, calamity, for example, right? So in calamity, the umbrella is a material, and that I can use that to make something else entirely, right? But in terms of vanilla, which we're currently in, I don't have calamity enabled. Umbrella isn't a material, so I don't really know. Like I can't check that out. So if I create a mod, you know, that is kind of meant to help me out with say calamity, for example, then I'm going to want to be able to see all the potential possibilities that there are out there, which might cause me some problems um, when it comes to vanilla, right? Because um, Like there might be items in vanilla that, aren't materials, but in Calamity they are. Um, so um, so that's where it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna need to, um, I'm gonna need to kind of address that in my particular mod, right? Um, you know, but the question that I have right now is, one, how am I able to see like all the listed materials that I could potentially have to fill out that, table of contents or the tech tree, right? And two, how will I visually show it as well? And, how is it going to be able to determine whether or not it's vanilla or, some other mod, right? I don't know. Don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. Um, but I need one of the key components is that fact that I'm going to need to visually show this one way or another, right? So um, so knowing coordinates, even if it's world or screen coordinates or whatever, I'm going to need to know. So yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna need to kind of tackle. Um, we'll have to see what we're going to be kind of working on in terms of this here. So tiles are drawn not necessarily drawn to screen all the time. If you're using mod tile dot special draw or post draw or pre draw, use vector 2.0 is equal to main dot draw screen. Or vector 2.0 colon new vector. Okay, so basically what it's saying is that, hey, um, you're either getting, um, you know, basically a new value there, um, or basically a zero value, you know, from the draw to screen. So hey there, Abdul. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. How's your day been? So for this to accommodate shift and drawing coordinates that occurs when using the different lighting modes, press Shift 9 to change lighting modes and quickly edit and verify your code works for all lighting modes. So, um, so I'm gonna be kind of curious as to what I'm doing here, or what is this, you know, basically used for, you know, um, um, what does everybody use the drawing tiles for? Or sprite batch dot draw, or all that. So, um, hmm. Okay, let me look up these here in the API. post draw, pre-draw, and special draw. And see what else we can find there. So, okay, special draw is not showing up there. What about post draw? Nope. Okay. So apparently that is part of the mod tile. So let's look up that here real quick. There we go. Let's see. We have the special draw. Special draw only called if coordinates are added using main instance tile rendered at special legacy point during draw effects. Useful for drawing things that would otherwise be impossible to draw due to draw orders, such as items and item frames. Okay, so this could potentially, hmm. So, It seems to me like this one would be kind of falling into the, um, if you need to actually have a, an item in an item frame that isn't typically normal, right? Or, it's not part of the vanilla, then you can use the special draw to take the sprite in this particular case and put it within that particular position, you know. So, um, well, I'll have to look up sprite batch later, seeing that it's not really giving me any kind of links to the sprite batch there. Now, post-draw and pre-draw is not in this listing for the mod tile, which is interesting. Um, so I'm not quite sure where it is. So post-draw. Oh boy. That is a lot of different post draws and a lot of different effects of the post draw. So for example, the global projectile post draw. So allows you to draw things in front of a projectile. Method for drawing. This method is called even if pre-draw returns false. So the projectile and the light color of the projectile's center after being modified by vanilla or other mods. So um, but um, just notice the fact that there's a lot of different post draws that are out there. It's not just one particular, um, class that uses it. So, okay. Interesting. Hey there, Cameron. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. How's your day been? So for pre-draw, so allows you to draw things behind a projectile or to modify the way the projectile is drawn. Returned false to stop the vanilla projectile drawing code. Returns true by default. So in front and behind, which is interesting. You would think that it would be kind of like the other way around, especially if you have the like if you have a projectile that's like going, from left to right, right? You would think that um the area that it hasn't reached yet would be kind of like the pre-destination, or the destination that it needs to reach to, versus the position that it already left, or in a sense post. But in this particular case, they're kind of doing it, you know, the other way around. Front of a projectile is post and after is pre. I don't know. I don't know why they named it as such, or why. But obviously, that's not something that I can really ask the developers of tMod about. Um, what the thought line behind that is, but whatever. Um, I'm not going to stress about it too much. But needless to say, there's a lot of post draws and pre draws that are out there, that anybody could use. So um, concerning these, so um, again, I'm kind of at a bit of a loss as to how to really like visually see this per se. And let me see if I can find a tutorial for this here real quick. Hold on, let me. I don't necessarily want to be showing this on screen though, so give me a second. Let me do a little bit of a searching here. So special draw Terraria. Tutorial. No, it has to use special draw. It doesn't look like I'm finding much of anything concerning that. Or at least it doesn't look like there's anything that really stands out for that particular part of the yeah. Hmm. I'm not really seeing much. Really, nothing that is like really standing out to me. Like I could probably like look at all these YouTube videos to see what they might have to say about it, but there's nothing that absolutely screams to me like, hey, this is going over special draw or post draw or pre-draw or anything along those lines. So, hmm. Okay. So the way I look at it right now is um we're pretty much at that point where um I'm pretty much at that point where okay, so if I want to draw, some form of sprite to a particular position, then the special draw might be necessary. If I'm needing to do anything like, um, I guess after, um, allows you to draw things in front of the NPC. Um, so sprite batch to draw on the screen position used to translate world position into screen position and the color the NPC is drawn in. So, um, not quite sure why you need to have the draw color of the NPC if the NPC already has some form of color associated with them. So, not sure about that, but hmm. Maybe I need to see about um let me see if there's any kind of post draw or pre-draw tutorials out there. Hmm. Nothing really there either. Hmm. So I'm not quite sure exactly what it's all about. So um so yeah, this could be um sorry, Cameron, I'm not going to be answering that. I don't really want to have any kind of religion discussion on my channel, especially during recordings or something like that. So, because, you know, if I say if I say one particular religion, I'm probably going to piss off another or something like that. Or I'm probably going to have someone come into my chat and say, "You need to change," or some crap like that, right? Um, I don't want to have that happen. So, um, I'm not gonna do that. Um, but here's what I will say. My beliefs are my own beliefs. If anybody has their own beliefs, then that is their own beliefs. If you can respect my wishes to not throw your religion into my face, then I won't throw mine into yours. So that's all. That's all. And we can just kind of leave it at that. No worries. Like I'm not one to say one religion is worse than another. Okay? I'm not going to do that. Okay? Because um, that just starts off a whole battle, and it's just not needed at all. Okay? I mean, wars have been fought because of people's idiotic views about their how one religion is good and one religion is bad. Okay? I don't want my channel to become a battleground. Okay? just putting it that way, you know. So, you know, just saying that alone, I could have some zealots coming into my channel and saying, you know, my religion is the best. You have to convert or some crap like that. Or I could be completely canceled because, someone could be saying, this person hates this particular religion when I never actually said anything along those lines. So that's all. So I'm not gonna answer that. So don't want to cause a war. So I respect other people's you know personal beliefs. They can have their personal beliefs. I can have my personal beliefs, and we'll leave it at that. You know, I just find it silly that there are some people out there that feel that their religion is the prim and proper one kind of thing when in the end they don't really know. You know, think of it this way: if um, you know, um, you know, let's say you have a religion, you believe you have your all-powerful God that created everything, right? Well, here's the thing: has to say that you know why would God want to have multiple different religions out there? Now, one could say, like, oh, because the devil did it, or something like that. Whatever. You know, you're making excuses, in my opinion. So, but again, I don't want to start that conversation. Let's get off the subject of that because it's a dangerous subject. It's very dangerous. So I don't really want to talk about it anymore. So I don't want to upset people's viewpoints. You know. Okay. Okay. I don't know if I can really do too much more with the post draw and pre draw right at this moment in time. I don't know if I can really do any. I'm not really seeing any like tutorials um from my searching here. Um, so unfortunately, my attempts to keep one. Yeah, I'm not really seeing much. I'm not really seeing much in terms of the any kind of any mod tutorials concerning it, which is kind of unfortunate. So I'll have to kind of we'll have to wait and see on this because if I do need to draw something concerning the tiles, then obviously we'll have to kind of come back to this for now, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. Okay, each tile occupies a 16 by 16 area of world coordinate space. If you multiply a tile coordinate by 16, you'll end up with a world coordinate pointing to the top left corner of that tile. You can use vector2.2 world coordinates to simplify your code. Point.2 world coordinates automatically adds 8 to both x and y, returning world coordinates of the center of the tile. So, so you get the point tile location of the local player's center tile coordinates. You put this tile location's x and y into a tile. And then you do then you create the you're getting the point and point 16 locations, the x and y there, and just the coordinate there, and put it into a tile, or a separate tile location there. So spawning Dustin and world coordinates from tile's tile coordinates. Point 16 position is equal to new point 16, I and j. Although, what's I and j? They don't give an I and j above, so I don't really know. All right, so okay, world coordinates. Yeah, not much I can really do about that. New desk direction, position to world coordinates. Best choice 0F, 0F, 100 default, 1F. So, again, I'm not quite sure where they got the I and J from, because you typically need values in there in order to get the proper value, created. I mean, unless you have like I and J in an earlier coding set, typically this doesn't work. Now, if you copy like this here and put it there, then that might work. But I'm not quite sure where they got the I and J from. This right here would typically probably give you like a coding error, saying, "Hey, what is I and J? I don't know what that is." So, you know what? I think I'm gonna move on. I don't. There's not enough here for me to really kind of work off of. don't get me wrong, I do have um a rough idea about everything that's kind of going on here, but at the same time, um it'd be kind of nice if I had something a little bit more here to kind of chew on a little bit more, to kind of show like visually what it does. So, um, you know, um, much like the tutorial sword, it'd be kind of nice if I had something here that could kind of do the exact same thing concerning like the screen coordinates, the drawing tiles, and the converting coordinates. Something that I can visually see what's kind of going on with them so that I know, exactly what's happening kind of thing. Some form of manipulation that I can see. Like if I change one number there, I can visually see it. If I change another number there, I can visually see that, for example, right? Um, you know, that kind of thing. So, but this gives me a rough idea anyway. So, but I think that's going to be it for this portion of this. So let's uh let's move back to this one and let's look at geometry here. So many visually interesting effects and interesting behaviors that a modder would want to implement in their mod require a small bit of geometry knowledge. This guide will explain the most basic usages of geometry in regard to tModLoader modding. For example, spawning dust or projectiles in an arc, having an enemy shoot towards the player, or writing homing behaviors all make use of geometry. After teaching the basics, the latter part of the guide will have examples of these concepts. Well, I hope so. Um, prerequisite knowledge, geometry education. As a programmer, especially one with interest in video games, geometry is an essential skill. As Terraria is a 2D game, the geometry knowledge needed is not extensive, but familiarity with the basics of vectors is essential. Terraria uses different sets of coordinates, and the directions of x and y might surprise you if you haven't worked in graphics before. See coordinates and familiarize yourself with world coordinates in the direction of positive x and y. So we just covered that, so we don't necessarily need to worry too much about that, or at least for the most part we covered it. So rotation. Rotation is expressed in radians, not degrees. Makes sense because radians tend to have more of mathematical backing than degrees does. If you would like to use degrees, simply call mathhelper to radians method. Typically, you only want to use degrees for the initial assignment of some behavior, such as declaring that the weapon will shoot in a 30-degree arc. Also note that the rotation of 0 faces to the right, rotating by 90 degrees will point straight down, as y points down. So, yeah, so that's the one thing that, um, that's the one thing that I will admit to on this one is the fact that, like, I personally won't be able to, like, you know, being able to look at a a circle, for example, and be able to go, oh yeah, that's in, this much radians is a little bit harder than say like, hey, I want to look at a 45-degree angle. So, you know, so yeah, there's that bit of problematic there, you know. Um, Like I've been kind of taught more on degrees than I have really in radians per se, or like, how many radians is in 45 degrees. Like I don't have that off the top of my head. Matter of fact, let me look it up right now. How many radians in 45 degrees? 0.785398. So, um, basically the formula is you take the number of degrees, you multiply it by pi, which is an infinite number at this time. We still have not discovered a ending value for pi yet. Um, you know, that's over 180 or 180 degrees. And you multiply that with the degree that you're checking out. Um, let's see. Fortunately, they don't necessarily give you the formula here right at this moment in time. Here, let me try to type it out in the chat down at the bottom here, so you know what exactly um, I'm looking at, right? You have degrees, you know, and you multiply that by the pi divided by the 180. So if you have, 45 degrees, for example, you multiply that by, pi all over 180, and you'll be able to get your radians out of it. So, um, yeah, let's see. One radian is 57.2958 degrees. So, yeah, it's not a simple conversion just because of pi. So it's not a clean. You're not gonna get a clean, like, simple integer value when you're looking at radians. So, okay. Um, well, I mean, you could try to look at it, that way, but if you try to convert it over to degrees, you're gonna have, you know, a you're basically gonna have a float or double or whatnot, right? So, all right, vector 2 is a struct that represents a two-dimensional vector as taught in geometry. A vector 2 contains two fields, x and y, representing the magnitude of the x and y components of the two-dimensional vector. In tModLoader, vector 2 is used for two main purposes. The first purpose is locations. A vector 2 is used to represent the position of many game elements, such as player, projectile, dust, or NPC. Vector 2 is also used to represent velocity. Velocity is the speed that something is traveling in both the x and y directions. For example, if the player's position is 3 and 7, and the player has a velocity of 4 and 8, then the player's position will move each time the game updates position by its velocity. In this example, after one update, that the player's new position will be 7 and 15, or 3 plus 4 to get the 7, and 7 plus 8 to make the 15. As you can see, adding vectors is done by adding each individual component. If vector A represents a position and vector B represents a velocity, then after x units of time, the new position will be equal to A plus x times B. There are some diagrams teaching this concept in Terraria coordinate system. Notice in the video how each tick the position is changed equal to the velocity of the player. Remember the game runs at 60 updates per second. Good to know. Didn't know that. So velocity values in are in world space units update world space units per update, not world space units per second. So seeing that there's 60 updates per second, you know, that's a lot of updates. So we also use vectors to represent the difference between 2 points. A common example of this is the enemy shooting a projectile at the player. If you want to program an enemy to shoot at the player, your code needs to know what direction to shoot at. We can calculate that direction by subtracting the player position from the NPC position. Subtraction of vectors works the same as addition. The x components are subtracted from each other and the y components of the vector are subtracted from each other. The vector from A to B is calculated by the following. Vector is equal to B minus A. Imagine if the enemy is at 14 and 4 and the player is at 3 and 12. By subtracting the enemy position from the player position, we get a result of negative 11 and 8. In our code, we can't use this vector directly as it represents the raw difference in position, not a direction. To turn this vector into a direction and subsequently use it to draw a projectile, read the vector2 normalized section below. The diagram below shows the resulting vector from the enemy to the player. In the above diagrams, you might have noticed that the arrows originate and point to the top left corners of the entities. In reality, player position does refer to the top left corner, as that is just how the game is designed. What this means is we rarely actually use player.position in code. Instead, we use player.center as that value points to the center of the entity. All entities can be thought of having a rectangle as their hitbox. The same can be said for npc.center and projectile.center. From now on, the guide will use .center as this position makes more sense to use. Makes sense. When the game updates the position of something like a projectile, it takes the current velocity and adds it to the current position. This happens 60 times a second and operates in world coordinates. For projectiles like a bullet, that is all that needs to happen, but we can implement acceleration to influence the velocity over time to give our projectile interesting movement. This acceleration happens in various AI methods and also in various collision methods. Acceleration can be used to simulate gravity, wind resistance, and homing capabilities. Gravity is simulated by adding a positive y velocity to the entity every update. The game implements gravity to players by default. NPCs are affected by gravity by if npc.noGravity is false. Dust also have a no gravity field. Projectiles are not affected by gravity, so the modder must add a gravity force to the projectile in modprojectile.ai if they wish. The basic projectile guide goes into various details for implementing gravity. So the projectile gravity or projectile velocity y is equal to projectile velocity plus 0.1f. So that's basically the velocity there. So, or that's their change of velocity that they want to do to add a sense of acceleration, right? So, drag or wind resistant. To simulate wind resistance, please read the basic projectile guide. Essentially, a component of the velocity is multiplied by a number slightly smaller than 1, so slowly reduce it. Homing. Homing is its simplest form, is basically accelerating towards a target. See basic projectile. A lot of basic projectile parts of this. But again, you know, these are things that I'm not really that um, completely interested in. You know, so I mean, I guess I could, potentially, look at the basic projectile, section here and try to um, you know, create something from it. Um, set up a um, use this particular mod section to kind of handle projectiles. But again, that's not the main purpose of what I need to do concerning the concerning what I'm kind of looking for at this time. Um, so while this might be very helpful for anybody that might be like working on a weapon or something that has some form of projectiles to it, that's not my purpose. So I think we can pretty much skip the rest of this. Kind of unfortunate that they kind of went in the direction of projectiles on this. Um, but um, I mean, because we have normalized here, we got rotation, we got multiplying vectors, length square, rotation, um, random vectors. But again, um, um, again, probably not going to be needing to worry about a lot of this either at this point. So, um, so, alright, okay, there we go. In this guy, you will go over glow masks, what they are, and how to apply them. Glow mask is masking is an art commonly used for protecting a selected area from change during production. In Terraria, we're doing almost the same by applying a glow mask. In Terraria, we're not really masking any part of the original sprite, like how you would do in art. Instead, we have a separate sprite containing the pixels we want to mask. The sprite is then drawn on top of the original sprite with its color not influenced by light, creating a glow effect. Okay. I mean, technically, that might be useful if I was, making sprites in this particular case, but again, I don't necessarily think that I really need to worry about that too much. Same with, um, I'm not really expecting this to be necessary in the user interface. Um, don't really see a need for the glow mask sprite as a user interface, but I could be wrong. Could be wrong on that. The glow mask might be something that might enhance the overall look and the interface that I might need to do in the future. Why? I don't know. I'm just thinking off, you know, thinking off the top of my head that it could be a possibility. So, all right. So we've pretty much covered these three here. Um, we're gonna be moving on to the entity source. Um, and what we're going to be, potentially doing with it. So that will have to be for next time. Um, and what we're gonna see about later for that. But that's gonna be it for tonight. We're gonna go ahead and stop our Java study session on this, or not Java study, the Terraria modding study session, trying to learn more about how to make a mod in Terraria. Um, I think, let's see. Um, I think this would probably be, this right here would probably be my most desired section, I would say. Potentially. Um, to see what we can kind of do with this right at this moment in time. So, or at least, this would probably be what I need to kind of work on in terms of making the mod in Terraria, or at least the user interface for it. So yeah. I think I've seen this name before. I believe he's a YouTuber as well. I think also a gamer. Pretty sure, but I could be wrong. All right, but that's going to be it for tonight. We're going to go ahead and close on down this portion of our coding stream. We're going to switch on over to the gaming side with a brand new game that we're going to try out for the first time tonight. So I'm I haven't heard too much about this particular game, which is interesting. Um, so I don't know what I'm gonna be kind of getting myself into. Um, like the few times that I have heard about it, I've heard that it's a good game, but I haven't played it. I haven't really seen anybody else play it. Hasn't really, from my experience, I haven't really seen um, too many people messing around with the game in the past, but um, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and switch on over to that. So, Telos Principle coming up. So for those of you that were in the chat that chatted with me, Abdul and Cameron, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And for anybody else that was just kind of lurking in the background, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. For anybody that was watching this later on YouTube, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. A like and subscribe would be fantastic. Would help out with the YouTube algorithm. Check out the description for multiple links. And check out Team Robot and all the members on there. Uh, so, but that's gonna be it for this portion of the Terraria modding coding session. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully I catch you next time. But until then, take care. Have a good night. Stay healthy. Stay safe. I'll catch you strangers next time.